Welcome to the Sting of Time, episode 34. We have just watched The Scorpion King for the 34th time. How are you
Scorpion
feeling?
King. What do you think about the title, The Scorpion King? I feel like we've discussed it now
Definitely
and
have.
then, but not for at least a few minutes.
It's probably been like 30 episodes or something, so.
Yeah.
Which means it's been 30 weeks, which is pretty crazy. Which it feels longer
Mm.
than, or well, I should say, it feels 30 episodes ago feels shorter than 30 weeks ago.
So what do you think about the title, The Scorpion King?
I feel like it is not very descriptive.
No. There's only one like 1.5 scorpions in the movie. There are several kings. Memnon isn't ever actually, referred to as king. He's only referred to as my lord.
Yes.
But they never call him like King Memnon and so on.
Yeah. He says he's going for becoming the king of legend. That's about
Yeah,
it.
exactly. King of Legend. A
Uh,
a line clearly referencing the dropped plot line
yes.
of Scorpion King.
Which we have watched.
Yes, we have watched that. Not this watch, but we have
No.
watched it
I
in a
can't
previous
remember.
watch.
It's probably like 10 or 12 watches ago or something.
Yeah. This watch went by really quick.
Yes.
It was really fast. I theorize, or rather, I'm not sure if I should spoil this for our 1.5 viewers. So in fact, I will not. But the next watch of Scorpion King might be something quite special.
Mm.
It has been prophesied in the land that might be the case. And due to the nature of the next watch, I was suspecting that this watch for me would be torture, that
Mm.
it would be awful, but it actually went by really, really quickly instead, which I think is also because of what the next watch is going to be. And that surprised me.
Yeah. It went by quickly for me as well. I feel like I'm really preoccupied, which
Yeah,
maybe helps it. Um,
you're preoccupied.
uh, if there is such a thing as a returning Sting of Time watcher, which is a bit unclear,
Mm.
that returning watcher will no doubt have realized that I'm still in the same apartment.
Yes, even though you were supposed to
Yeah,
not be in the
I
same
was
apartment.
supposed to have left this apartment, but the gods of apartments kept me here for one more watch. So I am still here, but it is way emptier. You can actually see through things here.
It's interesting because depending on how much recurring watchers have spied of your lands in the background, it might actually seem like it is less empty because it has more stuff like in the middle of it now.
Mm.
It seems more cluttered now because otherwise it's usually not a lot going on in the background, but now there's like boxes and stuff.
Yes, but I think the boxes might imply something.
I'm not sure what it implies.
Yeah. There are Tintin cars here that have never been seen before. Which
Should you show? Maybe you should show the Tintin car to the recurring viewer.
You can pick.
The right one, orange. There it is.
There it is. I'm contemplating throwing all these Tintin cars away.
I'll take them if you don't want them.
Okay, you can have them.
Nice.
Congratulations. You can add them to your very small, or at least compared, I should say, compared to mine, small amount of clutter on your desk.
I might add them to a bookshelf.
You could have them in front of your keyboard.
I could wear them as a hat for the next watch.
You could. I think it would probably. Oh, I believe you. I believe you could do it. Yeah, so my life is in shambles. I have not been able to do much in my home for a week since it's been pretty much packed up. I say that's a lie. I've been able to live basically the same as I always do because it turns out that I use
You,
like 4% of all the things I own.
you have been able to live the way you always do, except in shambles.
No, I don't think there have been any shambles. No shambling.
There's been no shambles, but you have lived the way you always do, all the same.
Yes. I don't really have that much to say about this viewing of the movie. We did talk a lot about the movie while watching it, which is, I think,
Yeah, I feel like that might be, that might be a sign that maybe we should expedite the arrival of the live watch in the land, because I feel like we talk way too much during the watch, and then we both forget what we talk about, or we don't want to talk about the same thing again once we start the podcast. So we just end up like, awkwardly staring at each other and thinking about what am I going to talk about? Let's talk about the Tintin car. And then, the 1.5 viewer feels really left out, probably.
yeah, I
So,
don't think they care, but it might make for a more interesting chronicling in the future.
Yeah, food for thought.
I wonder. I have been at some point. I'm way past that. At some point, I considered the format of the Sting of Time and our way of communicating from the lens of can this be improved for the viewer? And the answer is obviously yes. It's yes.
What's wrong with the way we communicate?
1,000,000 times.
I think we have crystal clear communication.
Yeah, I think it's probably quite below par for sort of podcast listening material. But that is sort of irrelevant. I don't think it really matters because I don't really think anyone necessarily is super interested in this concept anyway. And it's generally not really done for anyone else.
Why is it done?
I think it's done because I asked you.
Oh, right. I remember now.
But I wonder if we let's say if we just basically wrote down the things we talked about while watching the movie and we sort of went through it again, I wonder if that would be that much more interesting because it's kind of dry. And then again, they are conversations that are extremely centered on having watched this movie for 34 times.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be more interesting.
At least 34% of the conversation is that.
But considering how I feel like often the episode of The Sting of Time is less focused on talking about the movie, which I think would lead a viewer down the path of thinking that, okay, we don't really have that much to say about the movie. But while watching the movie, we're generally talking about the movie.
Yeah, we extremely seldomly, I feel, talk about, unrelated things while watching. And we definitely know how to talk about unrelated things to what we are doing. But when we're watching The Scorpion King, we almost exclusively talk about The Scorpion King. And then when we get to the podcast, that's when we start talking about completely unrelated things because we're so like exhausted from, or rather exhausted our vocabularies by then. I don't know. So yeah, but maybe we should start. Maybe we should have, we should have a completely like silent watch, and I don't mean like a weird silent watch, but like a silent watch. But we just when we feel like I'm gonna say this or I wanna, then we just write it down and shut up. Or you can do it, but I think I will do that. on the next like normal watch.
Yeah, maybe that's smart. I wonder, like, it's. I feel like we have technically a bunch of. I was gonna say interesting, but interesting to someone who has watched this movie for 30 plus times. I feel like we have sort of interesting discussions about very minute things,
Yeah.
extremely minute things.
But I think we might be unlocking some weird power by now, like in terms of we're beginning to harness the energy of this entire thing into like actual, like we might have some tangible insight into like the movie and the things about the movie which might be worth listening to.
Perhaps. I was
Might.
gonna say that it's hard to gauge if anyone else could even follow that discourse, you know, because at this point, when we're talking about like when we're talking about, let's say, like the interaction between Memnon and Matthias in the end, the sword fight, and we're sort of talking about the thematics of the sword fight, different ways it could have played out, why it doesn't play out that way in the canon of the movie, sort of some like meta-analysis of Memnon's state of mind. Because there's generally not that much meta-analysis of Dwayne's state of mind, if I'm being honest.
No.
The
We
guy...
also talk about Memnon.
Yeah. Or, well, I think there are some... I was always going to say that there are some interesting characters, but I don't think that's necessarily true. But from our sort of understanding of the movie, there are some characters that are interesting to speculate about. But that conversation, like that example of Memnon in the throne room, the way we talk about it is informed by not only having seen the movie 33 times or 34 times now, it's informed by having the discussion about Memnon's character in every scene from every other angle except that one. So it's like if you read a book 30 times, of course you can, if someone says like, oh, I don't know, read The Lord of the Rings, but consider Aragorn as a baddie this time. You can't fucking do that the first time. It's impossible.
Yeah. That stuff would be really good to have, on the podcast. That would be, that way maybe others could, hear that. I wanted to say like take part in it or like absorb that information, but then there's nothing. I think they could just hear it.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say like if someone made a YouTube video about their thoughts on Aragorn as a secret baddie in the Fellowship of the Ring, I think you couldn't absorb that if you hadn't read the book a bunch either. So it would just be some guy saying something, and you'd go, "Oh, interesting, you did something."
Yeah, it's kind of like if you would say like, "Oh, Sauron was actually, he tried to do good for Middle Earth. He was trying to do good. He just, he got sidetracked along the way, and he, got kind of lost his way and was corrupt and whatever." And basically, Gandalf is like the bad guy. He's like the cop they send to shoot Sauron in the head, but they don't give him a gun, so he has to get creative about it. So it's like read Lord of the Rings from that angle, and then come back to me and tell me how you felt about it. And it's like, are you a moron?
I think there's literally a book that is that.
Yes, I'm sure there is.
It's like I think it's a Russian book.
Well, there's a book for everything.
Yeah, but I think it's a pretty old book. It's like about Mordor.
Maybe I subconsciously, just took. I know about this book, and I just thought this is the time to pull that one out.
Yeah, I think it's like Mordor is a socialist state,
Yeah.
and Gondor is, you know, a fascist state trying to put them down or something, and they describe them as orcs, you know, because they can't be human. That yada yada yada. Yeah, it's not very good as far as I know, but it does exist.
Mordor exists.
Yes, in each and every one of us.
I don't know. Do you feel like you have anything else to add?
I almost feel like I have to have something else to add, because I feel like if we made an episode that was 15 minutes long, it would
Wow, have you only been
star.
talking for
Yeah,
15
it's
minutes?
only 15 minutes.
Well, okay. What do you think about? We talked a bit about Armpit this this watch, and or rather, I talked about how I was thinking, how come Armpit changes his view on Dwayne, and then in a way that like at first he's like trying to use Dwayne, but then he becomes like more he trusts Dwayne or whatever. And I kind of caught myself in that thought and realized that with some help realized that this Armpit arc does not exist.
Yeah.
That I've imagined this entire like view of Armpit's character, and what his only interest and like driving force is when he tells Dwayne when they're in the ant pit thing, when he tells him, I will save you if you promise to take me with you and share in the spoils of your adventure.
Yeah.
And I have kind of had in my head that he's just using Dwayne. But he never needs Dwayne,
Yeah.
and Dwayne never really does anything for Armpit in the entire movie, and he certainly doesn't have him like prisoner, or like that. So Armpit can leave whenever, which is ironic considering he says, "Can I go home now?" That one
Yeah.
time.
I
But
wonder, like, it's interesting that you said that Dwayne doesn't use Armpit, because technically, I guess Armpit.
But I mean, except for the thing
Yeah.
with the gate, but I mean more like
Yeah, but we talked about that as
Yeah.
well, and that's such a weird non thing.
Yeah,
You know?
like why did he need to use Armpit
He
like
didn't.
that? Why couldn't Dwayne just walk in? Because the guards clearly are not looking for Dwayne. He's clearly not
Yeah.
wanted. He is not wearing a disguise. A hood is not a disguise, and so on. So,
But I
it's
was
really weird.
interesting, because we talked before about how a couple of episodes ago, I think, talked about how Dwayne, or Matthias, whatever, that character doesn't really succeed in much.
Yeah,
In many
he doesn't
actions,
succeed in much of anything now.
I suppose he kills Thorax Men, but he technically, it's a draw. We talked about that.
Because
he would have
gets
died.
mortally poisoned.
Yeah. So I guess he beats Balthasar. That's about it. I think that's the only. But then again,
we have argued, during that fight, that Balthasar, wins several times, but just does not, give the coup de grace to Dwayne. So
there's the whole screaming stuff.
Exactly.
But I think there's an interesting intersection between Matthias basically fumbling his way to victory with the aid of other people. Like, obviously he would have been dead if Armpit didn't save him, and he would have been dead if the sorceress didn't save him, and but there's an interesting intersection with that, with the idea that after Armpit saves Matthias, you could completely delete him from the movie and it would make no difference.
Yeah, we mentioned that a bit, how there's no point in Armpit being in Gomorrah for that, like that entire huge part of the movie, because he has to, he uses him to get in, questionable if that was required or not. and then he just sits and drinks wine and eats kebab or whatever,
Yeah.
and then he walks out, and then it's it's over.
Yeah. You could argue that he needs to get the camel out of there, but I think the camel just shows up
Yeah,
Deus
the
Ex
camel would have
Machina,
just
so
left, I guess eventually. It would just
yeah.
have, magically teleported to Dwayne, just like how it is introduced,
Yeah.
or rather
Yeah, exactly.
reintroduced after the
But after that,
thing.
Armpit doesn't do anything. You could argue that in the end he
Lights the
lights the
fire.
fuse, but I think if Armpit wasn't down there, you would
I
have
think
just had an Amazon or something with Philos who
Yeah.
would have just killed the guards.
Exactly. Or Philos would just have been by himself, and then maybe he would have done it because he hates Memnon so
it
much.
probably
or
would have
whatever.
gone quicker as well, considering he wouldn't have to deal with a fumbling Armpit, who is
Exactly.
like, he's only comically inept in that scene.
Yeah, it's in he. Yeah, actually, it might just be that scene. I was gonna say he only becomes comically inept after he or like after a certain point in the movie, like after he saves Dwayne or whatever, because the whole ant pit part that shows like street smarts, guile, whatever kind of thing. Like you can kind of see that armpit is like some weird cockroach who is just surviving through all kinds of things his entire life. That's why he knows this kind of technique to get out of the pit and like that sort of thing. But then he just becomes like, oh, now I'm just someone who runs into things like a stormtrooper or whatever.
Yeah,
So
but that's, as we said, is literally his last scenes in the movie is him, which is interesting. It's a
that's not the last scene with him.
Well,
he shares when
but his last scenes is him turning.
It's the
into
last time he hits his head in the movie.
Turning into a bumbling idiot, which is sort of a reversal of what that character trope generally is. They are bumbling, and then in the end, they do the thing.
Yeah.
I
guess maybe David Hayter felt that his in the end he do the thing is lighting the fire.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
Comes a bit out of nowhere.
Haven't talked about David in a while.
No, we haven't. I read an article about David Hayter and the Scorpion King at some point. I can't remember.
Oh yeah,
what was in it,
I vaguely remember. You mentioned it off camera.
Yeah, it was. I think it was something to do with the pay or something like that. But I don't know. My David Hayter interest, I think, is at an all-time low currently.
Yeah.
But that might also be that I feel like I'm at an all-time low for listening to I Stand Alone as well. I'm basically clicking off the movie the second we reach end credits. So I don't really think I see David Hayter's name anymore.
No, I'm exactly the same. Because in the past we usually have like a bit of a weird sing along at the end to I Stand Alone, and I feel like similarly to the kid getting strangled, the charm of that has just been completely evaporated beyond your comprehension. It just does not exist anymore. And now, like the second you see Russell's name, you just go click off the thing, and we don't even like comment on it anymore. It's just like, right, okay, whatever, time to start the like truly a soulless finish to a soulless watch. It had a bit of soul.
After the first viewing in January, or I guess technically no, I think the first viewing in January will be, if I read this correctly, will be viewing number 40. Or 41. It might be 41. I think it will be 41. which means that when we are watching the movie for the first time in 2023, we will be starting the countdown for 12. There's 12 left.
Yeah.
That's kind of bonkers. I feel like that's going to feel like nothing. The second we leave the area of, I guess we're already under 20, but yeah, I feel like just that 12 number feels very final in some way. That is still 3 months though, so
we have a lot of watches left.
Yeah, but way fewer than we have done.
Yes,
way
true.
Fewer. It's 18 to go. 34 done.
I don't like to talk about how many times we watched the movie. Can we wrap this up?
Yes.
So I can do something else.
Yeah.
I don't like this anymore.
Would you? I mean, this was a smooth viewing. Would you recommend the movie today?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. I thought you would maybe say something else.
Well, you thought wrong.